Hello, hello. So I want to talk about today self-image. And I just think it's something that I've personally been learning. And so I'm excited to just dive into it a little bit. This might take a couple podcasts just because um, there's a few different things I want to talk about with it. But first, I want to define it for us because I didn't really even know what my self-image was, if I'm being 100% honest. There's just so many things that unless you're taught, you really don't know it. You can't learn it if someone isn't giving you the information. And so for me, I was like, I don't even know what self-image is, so let's find out. I wanted to get the right, definition, right? Because I've heard a lot of different things about it, but not really the actual like definition of what the meaning is. So the idea that one person has, like me, that I have, or you have, the idea that we have of our abilities, and our appearance and our personality. Um, and so I want you to just think about that for a minute. What I um mean by self-image in that definition is, you can also think of self-image as an internal dictionary. It's that which describes your characteristics, how you describe yourself, your characteristics, how you view who you are. So, for example, if you think you're intelligent or beautiful or ugly or talented or selfish or kind, these are characteristics that form a collective representation of your strengths and weaknesses as we see them. But you are the one who usually points them out. So that's like your self image. Your self image is not what someone else thinks of you, it's what you think of yourself. So when you look in the mirror, what do you see? What do you feel? What do you think about yourself? And it's a mental picture that we give ourselves. And so generally, it's a kind that is quite resistant to change. And so what I mean by that is most people struggle with their identity, their self-image. And I was somebody who did. So I had worn a bunch of different masks to people please and to block out trauma and to just avoid conversations I didn't want to have. And so I had all these layers of different masks that I would wear. And I did, when I look in the mirror, I just didn't know who I was. Like I had no, I mean, I just had no idea of who I was. Like I couldn't look at myself and say I was beautiful. I didn't love anything about myself, like not one thing. I'd pick myself apart. I had a really horrible self-image. And that depicts not only details that are potentially available to an objective investigation by others, like height, weight, hair color, but it also the items that have been learned by the person or by themselves. So for me, the reason why I struggled with self-image, and like knowing who I was because I had been hurt and been abused and kind of felt abandoned in a lot of areas of my life. And so I really didn't want to work on myself and I didn't think I needed to change. And I was really resistant to change. And I put on this show for people, not realizing that people could see right through it. What we don't understand is that we're putting on these masks, but people can feel and see and can like really really some people can identify someone who has a poor self-image or somebody who's struggling with their self-image or even struggling with their life in some way shape or form. Like I can spot a cigarette smoker, I can spot an alcohol drinker, I can spot somebody who doesn't work out or exercise. Like there's a lot of different ways to be able to spot somebody who, isn't healthy or who maybe looks healthy, but you still know they have some gut health issues. Like there's little ways and cues that the body gives us, but with self-image, it's more internal. And so, yeah, there's these public physical things on the outside that people see that can understand. But self-image is really like, it doesn't matter what anybody else really thinks of us. It's more so like what we view ourselves. Like, what are the thoughts that we're saying to ourselves each day? Are we pouring love into ourselves or just degrading and criticizing and just devaluing ourselves, right? And so there's four types of self-image that we're going to talk about today. The first one is public self. It's how others perceive you. I was talking a little bit about that, how we can see that when we look at people, right? It's how others perceive you. I used to get called like, you're the GOAT. And I was like, greatest of all time. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. I don't feel that way, right? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And that was because the public self that I had put out, I had like shown up really big for others and helped them and like knew my stuff and I was on top of things. But deep down, I still was battling internally with like the trauma, to be honest with you, is the trauma was still holding my past was still holding on to me like bondage. So my public self didn't match my self concept. That's the second one, who you believe you are. So my public self and my self concept were not aligning, because I did not believe what those people were saying about me. I did not believe at all what those people were saying about me. So the third one is actual or behavioral self, the self you create through your actions and habits. That's actually the one that I feel like is the most powerful. The self you create through your actions and habits um, also can dictate how you feel about yourself, what you believe in yourself, because your habits are so something that like your habits are like always going to be there. You're always going to have some sort of habits, whether they're good habits or bad habits. And I call habits paradigms. If you don't know what paradigms are, this incredible book by Bob Proctor, it's called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. And then we'll talk more on another podcast about paradigms. We'll definitely dive into that because I've learned that over the last year and it has just been an incredible like realization. But they're just a multitude of habits and these habits lead to things that happen and actions that you take, and that's how your results come. If you want to know if it's a good habit or you're not making the right actions, look at your results. And so that's your results are like the key to everything. And so I had to realize that. The next one is your ideal self, the self you aspire to be. So if you are having a trouble with like the public self, the self concept, or the actual and behavioral self, think about if you were to work on the ideal self. So as you're working on these things and you're developing and figuring out, don't beat yourself up when something's not what you want. Instead, ask yourself, what would you like it to be? How would you like to change that scenario? Because if you can find the good in it, you're going to get the good because we're magnets and we attract what we put out. So if we're putting out anxiety, if we're putting out frustration or anger or upsetness, like we're upset about we made a bad mistake. Like you're like, oh, I made a mistake. I learned something this last week and I really loved it. My life coach said there are no mistakes because you can choose to do something different. And so if it didn't work, it's okay. You just go choose something different. And I think that's so important for us to realize, right? And so self-image, you have to look at these things as you're growing, you're changing, you're finding your ideal self. Get out a pen and paper and write out 10 to 20 things or go more if you want of what you would want your ideal self to be. Who would they be? What would they, how would they talk? How would they come up to people and have conversations? How would they handle problems? How would they feel? Like would they feel joy and gratitude, or would they still feel frustrated? Like what would you want them to feel, right? And then you get to choose this because you're creating this person and you're allowed to become this person. You have to stop asking and waiting for permission from someone. Just give yourself the permission to become this ideal person. And then as you make this list of things like, how do they dress? How do they dress? What foods do they eat? What drinks do they drink? How do they take care of themselves? What kind of self-care are they doing? What kind of fun activities do they enjoy doing? How do they show up for other people? What service are they doing? Like how does their house look compared to now? Like what does their life look like? What car are they driving? Like step into that vehicle, into the driver's seat and feel yourself there. Like go on a drive. Take yourself into nature. What kind of going out and doing in nature, do they do? Do they travel? Do they what do they do? Who are they? And what do they love? What do they love, right? And so it's like once you can start coming up with your ideal self, the person you aspire to be, you can start living like that. So you can look at that list and be like, what can I do right now? What can I do right now? Well, you can look for a new outfit. Save money to get a new outfit if you don't have the money. You know what I mean? Like, one of my friends, she said, I've always put myself on the back burner, but I got myself some really comfortable shoes this payday. She's like, I went out and I bought myself some good walking shoes. She's like, I have this goal to lose more weight. She's lost almost like 200 pounds already. And she was like, I think close to 500. So like she just decided that she was going to do it. So yeah, she's actually, yeah, she's lost quite a bit. She's under the 300 mark. Gosh, I want to say she's, I mean, she's getting really close to being like really close to just 200 and or less. Like she's doing amazing. And she said she just was going to do that. And I thought that was the coolest example because her old self, when she wasn't doing the work on herself and she wasn't healing and doing the steps of like the work that we're doing together to just heal the trauma, right? And to live in the now and then to grow into the future. Um, she would not have done that. And so she was like, I just told her how awesome that must feel, how good that must feel. And she did. She said it made her feel so good. And I've noticed her taking steps to take care of her health more since then and to work on her self-image and like her health and her mindset. And like you can just see that like one little thing that you shift can shift a whole lot of things. And so she may not even notice that, right? But I did. And so like that's just a good example. Um, and so your self-concept, your self-image, you got to think about your values and your attitudes. Your self-concept is made up of your personal values, your attitudes, and your self-image. It also includes your beliefs and how effective you can be in a particular situation. And so um, if you really want to work on your self-image, then you really got to think about those other parts, right? Like, what are your personal values? Write down your personal values. Is there something that you feel like in those personal values that you could shift and grow? Or are they just set in stone exactly how they are? And you need to just address that right now. And then your attitudes. Think about your attitudes in situations for when they don't go your way, when they do go your way, in your day to day. Just start taking a personal note. If you don't know what these things are, get a notepad of paper, kind of keep them nearby, or your notes in your phone, and make a little note that says personal values, and then another note that says attitudes, and another note that says self image, and then another note that says beliefs, and right and your belief, and take those things, and as you go throughout your day just kind of assess, or throughout your week or your month, however long it takes you, just assess how, sit down each day or halfway through your day and go, how's my attitude been, and just do an attitude check-in. And then how's my self-image been, how do I feel about myself, do a self-image check-in. What are my beliefs today? Have any of my beliefs grown and shifted? Do a belief check in. Personal values. Do a personal values check in. And just, do I have something that's specific today that has occurred that has shown me something about one of these categories? And what's going to happen is you're going to see a pattern. You'll start seeing a pattern of your personal values. You'll start seeing a pattern of your attitude. You'll start seeing a pattern of your self-image, and then of your beliefs. And then you'll have basically a list. And what you're going to do with this list is you're going to work on bettering it. So as much as you want to say everything is set in stone, I promise you everything on that list you can grow. You can change, you can evolve, you can do better. And so you're going to say, how can I improve my beliefs? How can I improve my self-image? What are some affirmations I can say to myself that will help solidify these each day? So come up with an affirmation about your belief. um I am so grateful that I'm a child of God. That would be a really big one for me because I struggled with my relationship with my Heavenly Father for a really long time. And as I've started working on myself and started developing myself and improving who I am and creating this better self-image, this better ideal self, I have the best relationship. Like I'm just so grateful. And you can talk about gratitude. Write down 10 things each day. 10 might be hard at first, but everything, even the air you breathe, you should have gratitude for. But gratitude in the morning, especially writing down 10 things each day that you're grateful for, is literally like the best thing you can do for yourself each day. And if you don't have your family on there, then you're crazy, because you should be so grateful for the family you have, even if it sometimes feel chaotic, even if they overwhelm you and overstimulate you, even if there's some that you don't get along with, you should be grateful for your family. And so, I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my coworkers. I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful for the home I'm in. I'm grateful for the car I drive. I'm grateful for the bike I ride. I'm grateful for the that I get to walk. I'm grateful that I have a voice that can be heard. I am grateful that I get to help other people each day. I am grateful that I get to wake up. I'm grateful that for the air I breathe. I'm grateful for the food that I have in my home and that I have for my family. Like, think about anything and everything. I'm grateful that I can travel. Like, there's just so many things that you could be grateful for. I'm grateful for this cute little purse that I found the other day. Like, there's just so many things that you can be grateful for, that it doesn't have to be hard. We make it hard. And your self image will improve the more you find joy and gratitude in each of your day and each day. And that's also going to help with those other parts of your image, of your self image. And the ideal self image is the person you want to be. This person has the attributes or qualities you're either working toward or want to possess. It's who you envision yourself to be if you were exactly the person you wanted to be. Um, how you see yourself at this moment in time will impact your future self image. And so, it's important that if you're working on that ideal self image and you're working on aspiring to be and that person and have those attributes and those qualities, right, that you want, it's important that you start practicing those right now. Practice loving yourself now. Practice falling in love with every flaw, every little thing that you're struggling with right now. The more you can let go of the things that hurt you and forgive, the more your ideal self image is going to come into fruition. Something that I have really, really been working on, and I think this podcast is even helping me just those talking about it is a good reminder. I used to just internally beat the shit out of myself. Not gonna lie. I would just oh my gosh. I would beat the shit out of myself so bad that I at one point told my spouse, when we got into an argument, he said something and I said, "I don't care what you say to me. None of it matters, because I've already beat myself up in my head more than anyone else can. I know I'm a piece of shit." And it was in that moment that he just paused. And now most people in my life, especially my other spouses, would have just kept fighting with me and arguing with me and agreeing with me and like beating me down. He paused and he said, "You really feel that way about yourself?" And I said, "Oh yeah." I said, I already know, like, there's nothing that anyone can ever say to hurt me, because I am my own worst enemy. And I know how to hurt myself the most. So I don't need anybody else's help. And he hugged me. I'll never forget. He just grabbed me and just embraced me and just hugged me. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to feel, because I really truly believe that about myself. And it was something that he said after that that really, really made me upset at the time. But now I'm grateful he said it, because I think it was a pivotal point in our relationship. But I think it was also a pivotal point in my life, in my healing. He at that moment had said that, as much as he loved me, he struggled because I didn't allow him to love me. I didn't let him in. I wasn't letting him in. And it's really hard to be someone's partner when it's a one-way street. And I think I felt like I'd given so much to my past marriages and relationships that I was just burnt out. I was burnt out on trying. I was burnt out on the arguments. I was burnt out on having to come up with solutions. I was burnt out on having to compromise. I was burnt out on the letting go. I was burnt out on the grief. I was burnt out, just burnt out, just burnt out. And I didn't recognize that burnout then. And I tried to ignore it and try to just let the things in life that were happening just happen because so much was happening. My health was struggling. Um, we were at one point homeless for a couple of months. We literally, we literally just started all over again, and like twice in a couple few years gap. No, I mean, it was within like a 5-year period, we started over like 3 times, and it was hard. It was hard. And I just didn't know if I had enough steam to keep going. You know what I mean? Enough hope, enough of a big enough why. But I would look at my kids, and that was my why. My kids have always been my why. My kids have always been what saved me and what kept me going. And so I knew that no matter what, it had to get done. And I think that was a strong part of my self-image, was that I was so determined to just do whatever it took, right? And we got into our new place and the stability started and it just felt good, but I had never really felt that. And it was weird because I had grown up in such a busy home, not a quiet home, and I had grown up in just all this chaos, right? There's just always stuff going on, never really any quiet time to yourself. Like it was just chaos. And then the same with my early like adulthood, it was just chaos. And so this man came into my life and he was just so mellow and I didn't know what to do. and and it's different when you find somebody who is aligned, when you find somebody who knows what they want, when you're sitting there and you're not sure what the heck is coming next, but you just feel like there's something, right? And I called it a fly by wire life for a while, but it does affect your self image. And so I always tell people you have to quiet the mind, and I didn't do that. And my life coach is the one who taught me that. Like you have to quiet the mind at least 5 to 15 minutes a day. Meditate or just quiet your mind and just think of one little thing and just focus on that one little thing, like the sound of a fan. You know what I mean? Like just that one little thing, and then just try to quiet the minds. And I couldn't do that. I could not quiet my mind. The thoughts in my head were going a million miles an hour. And the anxiety was real, 37 plus panic attacks a day. The depression would pop in once in a while. The PTSD trauma would just trigger at any moment. Like I would have panic attacks that like you could walk into like from the living room to the kitchen. It could be one of the kids or even my partner. And I would just jump out of my skin. And if there was something in my arms, you can expect it to be flying. And I would scream the loudest yell, and just my heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. Like they were so real. And I hated them. I hated them. And you know what? I realize now today the reason why they stuck around was because I kept talking about how much I hated them. I kept talking about how much I didn't want them. And I kept complaining about them, and we're magnets. And I know that now I don't have them anymore. By the grace of God, I just realized that I do not need that bondage. And I just stopped talking about them. Matter of fact, this is probably the first time I've talked about it in a while. Because I just don't bring it up because I'm just so grateful. I live, with just such a great, healthy mind today. Um, but it took time, and I'm not going to tell you it happened overnight. I started working on myself, and started learning about personal development in December of 2019. But it wasn't until July of 2021 that I really started diving in. And since then, I've just learned and changed myself and improved myself in areas that I wanted improvement. And I'm always a work in progress, just like you are, just like everybody else is. And so I learned to stop being my own worst critic and starting to be my own best cheerleader. Um, I think that's really the biggest key is we got to flip that switch from criticizing to loving ourselves, unconditionally loving ourselves. And so that's what I started doing is I flipped that. The other thing I started was some no stinking thinking. And so every negative thought or negative word, I had to say 3 to 5 positive words out loud and flip it. And it's neutralizing that negative word, you know. And so you're changing it. And I've learned now to reject those negative thoughts, or they come into my head and I'm like, oh no, I reject you. And then it goes away and I kick it out of my thoughts. And it just takes time to be able to do that. But that's part of that quieting your mind each day. Um, and for me, it's been progress. It's been amazing because I can definitely tell the difference in who I am today. So can the people around me. And so I think that really is key. The other thing is when you become your best self and you're working on your self image, you have to understand that it's not a, how to explain this? It's not a destination, it's a journey. And we're always looking for the end. When I get here, I'll do this. When the kids are out of school, I'll do this. When the kids start school, I'll do this. When I feel better, I'll do this. When I have more money, I'll do this. You do see that you're just putting off things and time does not stop. It's never going to get done. If you use one of the but or this is why, things of that nature, it's never going to get done. Um those are stalls. Those are excuses. Those are fear talking, and you're letting your paradigms, your bad habits, those habits you don't care for, get in the way. And when you do that, everything stops aligning and attracting to you. So then you're like, nobody's buying my product, or nobody's listening to my podcast, or nobody's doing this, or nobody's doing that. And you get into this complaining mode. And then it just continues because what? We're magnets. And so it's so important that your thoughts are, you got to reject the ones that you don't want. And you've got to accept the ones that you do. And then, what's your goal? Like, have a big, crazy goal. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't have a big, crazy goal. Something I used to be told was that my goals were too big. I used to be told my goals were too big. And I almost believe them. I almost believed those people. It shut me down. It shut me mentally down. Um, almost entirely, the tail end of 2023. Um, I realized that just because someone else is afraid of going after such a big goal doesn't mean I have to be. By having that big, crazy goal, I have smaller goals in between, and it gives me like this. I'm just calling that out into the universe. Like I'm just asking God for it, and it'll happen when the time is right, and it's all his timing, and I'm just excited for it, and I have so much gratitude for it coming. And it's stepping stones. It's like I know that it's not the goal that's important, it's the people that are going to be impacted by that goal being accomplished. The impact that I get to make in the world because I chose to stick with that goal, that impacts my self-image. That impacts my self-image because it's the belief. It's part of that belief we talk about. If you can't believe that you're going to accomplish something, then that belief is just going to fizzle, right? But for me, like I truly do know that that's happening and I'm so grateful. But it took a while for me to practice like writing it out in a journal every day. I write it 3 times a day in the morning, I write it in the evening, the afternoon. I talk about it. I envision myself doing the things that are going to get me to that goal and that are getting me to that goal, and that have when I'm already at that goal, like doing the things. And I picture myself in my dream vehicle. I picture myself helping people, financially grow themselves, but also self-image, growing their self-image and becoming their most authentic self and becoming healthier. And there's just so many things, right? And so these are all part of just having that goal. The other thing is dressing yourself in something that makes you feel good. It can improve your confidence about yourself and it will make you feel good. I noticed that from working from home, there was a time when I was just like in my pajamas all day, and that really didn't brighten my mood. It didn't make me feel like a businesswoman. It didn't make me feel like I was going to go hit my goals that day or recruit a friend to join me or have a conversation. Like it just made me feel like I was at home chilling, right? And so then once I put on, like, I actually got dressed and actually felt good, it changed everything. And it's something simple, but it can make such a big difference. And so having a healthy, balanced diet will help your body and mind perform it at its best as well. And so you'll feel better about yourself if you're dressing yourself in something that makes you feel good and then eating foods that make you feel good too, because I think that that goes hand in hand as well. Because it does affect the body's self-image. It affects how we look. I've always battled my weight. I had an eating disorder at one point, and I really struggled with body dysphoria. And I don't know if you know what that is, but pardon me, good old allergies. Body dysphoria. Let me just grab the definition for you so I don't um, ruin it. And and what I what I learned is it's a disorder, and I didn't know that it's body dysmorphic disorder is what it's called. And people with this disorder may frequently examine their appearance in the mirror and constantly compare their appearance with that of others and avoid social situations or photos. And it's true. It can cause anxiety or general discontent, like you're just not happy with yourself. It also has also common unwanted thoughts, compulsive behaviors, or depression. Five symptoms is constantly checking yourself in the mirror, avoiding the mirrors, trying to hide your body parts under a hat or a scarf or makeup, constantly exercising or grooming, constantly comparing yourself with others, always asking other people whether you look okay. It can trigger other things like OCD or borderline personality disorder. Um, for myself and one of my kids, we struggled with it, and food was like that addiction, if that makes sense. And so we would have food, have struggles with the food and eating either too much or not enough. And then um because of health issues, not getting able to exercise made a big difference. But for me, it's like I used to be almost 400 pounds. Thank God I'm not that today. And I went from 4XL into mediums and larges after getting my health products, natural supplements into my body and actually getting what my body needed instead of what it was like, what it didn't need, and then going an anti-inflammatory diet, right? And so for me, I needed those things. Well, once I started losing the weight, I would look in the mirror and I would still see the almost 400-pound me. And even though that's not what the reflection was, I would see that person in the mirror, and I would just make me so disgusted with myself because I felt like I wasn't making any progress. But the truth is that was just what my self image was projecting, because that's what I'd always had known myself to look like and to be, because I had struggled with my identity. And so, the identity struggle, I truly believe started, um, I think it started from the first time I was molested at 3 years old. If I'm being 100% transparent, I thought it started when I was 9, but I realized it started when I was 3 years old from the first person who violated my innocence. And by being violated, I never felt safe. And my safety net was ripped out from underneath me. And the people who were supposed to protect me didn't. And so that safety net being ripped really made me on guard for every single moment in my life for the rest of my life, until I found personal development, started working on myself and recognizing those things. If you really want transparency, until last year when I found my life coach. And it was things that I finally said out loud that made me realize I needed the help that I needed from her. Um, Sometimes when we internalize it, we don't really think that that's our true story, but really that is. And I held on to so much aggravation. I allowed other people to internally affect my emotions, and I had done it for 40 plus years. So there was a lot on the line for me, right? And so all these things going on at once, but how did I do it? One day at a time, one day at a time, and taking a nap when I'm overwhelmed and when I'm overstimulated, when I'm not aligned with what I want to be and who I want to be. And so I think that's what people sometimes struggle with the most is they want to answer, they want to answer, they want to answer, and they push too hard, and then and then the answer that they wanted doesn't come. It's because they focus on it too much. Um, when you want something, you ask and you talk about it and you journal about it, and then you move on, and you know it's coming, and you have belief, right? And people who are working on their self image usually struggle with that belief. And when you can truly hone into that belief in yourself, you're unstoppable. And I think that's what someone needs to hear is that you get to decide how your emotions play out. No one gets to hurt your feelings. You choose if they hurt your feelings. And so for me, once I took back my emotions, and people used to tell me I was over emotional. They used to tell me that I talked too much. They used to tell me that I shared too much of my story. Like my story was such a mess, and how dare I make them cry? Like I've actually been told that by people. Um, I've heard things like, "Oh, great, here's Crystal Jaeger's story. Get out the tissue." Those things used to bother me. I was, I will be honest, I was like kind of taken back by some of them. Like, wow, is that how you truly feel about me? Maybe I should never share my story. Like I had that feeling at one point and thought at one point, and then I kicked it out really quickly and said, hell no. My story, my message, my message. And if it offends people, it just means that there's a part of it that they can relate to that they have not worked on for themselves. That's all it is. If you're offended by what I have to share, it just means you haven't done the inner work on you. Because I don't get to choose and make you feel how you choose. I don't get to choose your feelings for you. You do. And so that's what I realized was hell no. I'm always going to share my story. I'm actually writing a book about it right now. And I'm always going to work on my self image. I'm always going to choose who's in my circle and who's not. I'm never going to be afraid to say no again. I am always going to say yes to things that I love and that make me feel good and that bring out joy and so much just wonderful prosperity for myself and others. Like I realized that we get one life, and if we're not working on ourselves and we're not improving ourselves, then we're just wasting time. If we're constantly complaining, nothing changes. It just more complaining comes because you're a magnet, right? But if you don't like a situation, you have the tools and the power to flip the script. And that's what I've been able to do. And that's how I get to evolve. And that's how you get to change your life too. You take back the power. You stop letting other people impact your emotions, and you choose that's not going to happen anymore. You choose that you are the one that is in charge and have self control to be able to work on yourself, to be able to get the tools and the resources that you need to improve your life. Don't wait around for someone else to give them to you. Don't wait around for direction. Don't wait around for someone to give you permission because you'll never get there. You'll never work on yourself if you're waiting for someone else to guide you. You've got to start somewhere. Go on YouTube and type in how you're feeling and find a podcast that or a video to listen to, a song to listen to that can help you work through those emotions, but don't dwell on it. If it's something that's toxic and negative and it's not going to improve your life, close the door, shut the door, open a new door. And that's what I've had to learn. And it's so powerful, though, I will tell you, it's life changing. My life is so different today, and it's just improving every single moment because I choose my thoughts and I choose to hone in and have a sense of balance in my emotions. So I'm not over emotional and overstimulated, but I also know when is the right time to use my emotions that are for the good. And so it's just an amazing thing when you start working on your self image and you start deciding that you don't want to stay where you're at, that you're okay with being a better person, whether other people don't understand it. I will tell you that the walk can sometimes feel lonely, But what you have to understand is that I would rather be lonely than be complacent. I would rather be lonely than stay stuck somewhere I didn't love. I would rather be lonely than be surrounded by people who still made me feel lonely. And so just know that it's your tribe is coming, your people are coming, the things that you love are coming. But first you have to start believing that they're on their way and that you have what it takes to have them and that you deserve them and you're worthy of them. Um, but I hope this has helped somebody. We will definitely talk more about this. I will also bust out this really awesome book that I have been reading. And the next podcast, I will get it out and we'll learn a little bit from it. I'll take some notes and we will definitely dive a little bit more into self image. Have a great day and go out and share this with somebody today.